It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. We're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
We're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. What is the best single-author handbook for a best practices compliance program? I would humbly submit to you that it is the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition, by myself, Tom Fox. It's published by LexisNexis, and it's designed to give you information on how to improve your compliance program literally across an entire year. Each entry has 3 key takeaways of things you can do at little or no cost for your compliance program. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, so check out the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition. Day 13, Policies and Procedures. There are numerous reasons to put some serious work into your compliance policies and procedures. They are certainly a first line of defense when the government comes knocking. The P made clear any well-designed compliance program entails policies and procedures that gives both content and effect to ethical norms and that addresses and aims to reduce risks identified by the company as a part of its risk assessment process. This statement made clear that regulators will take a strong view against a company that does not have well thought out and articulated policies and procedures against bribery and corruption, all of which are systemically reviewed and updated. Moreover, having policies written out and signed by employees provides what some consider the most vital layer of communication and acts as an internal control. Together with a signed acknowledgement, these documents can serve as evidentiary support if a future issue arises. In other words, a document applies just as strongly to policies and procedures in anti-corruption compliance as it does in any other area. The specific written policies and procedures required for our best practices compliance program are well known and long established. According to the 2020 FCPA Resource Guide, some of the risks companies should keep in mind include the nature and extent of transactions with foreign governments, use of third parties, gifts, travel, and entertainment expenses, charitable and political donations, and facilitating and expediting payments. Policies help form the basis of expectations for standards of your conduct in your company. Procedures are other documents that implement these standards of conduct. Compliance policies do not guarantee employees will always make the right decision. However, the effective implementation and enforcement of compliance policies demonstrate to the government that a company is operating professionally and ethically for the benefit of its stakeholders, its employees, and the communities it serves. There are 5 general elements to a compliance policy, so you should stake out the following. Identify who the compliance policy applies to. Number 2, set out the objective of the compliance policy. Number 3, outline examples of both acceptable and unacceptable behavior under the policy. And finally, number 5, lay out the consequences for failure to comply with the compliance policy. The ECCP went further by requiring an assessment whether the company has established policies and procedures that incorporate the culture of compliance into its day-to-day operations through a design which is appropriate to the organization based on the organization's assessed risks. Moreover, just as your risks evolve, your policies and procedures should evolve. The 2023 ECCP asked the following questions. How often has the company updated its risk assessment and reviewed its compliance policies, procedures, and practices? Number 2, has the company undertaken a gap analysis to determine if particular areas of risk are not sufficiently addressed in its policies, controls, and training? Number 3, what steps has the company taken to determine whether policies and procedures and practices make sense for particular business segments or subsidiaries? Number 4, does the company review and adapt its compliance program based upon lessons learned from its own misconduct and that from other companies facing similar risks? The bottom line is that the DOJ expects updates to your policies and procedures, and they need to be reviewed on a regular basis and updated as your risks evolve. Finally, the 2020 FCPA Resource Guide ends its section on policies and procedures with the following. Regardless of the specific policies and procedures implemented, these standards should apply to all personnel at all levels of the company. It is important that policies and procedures are fairly and consistently implemented across the organization. Institutional fairness demands that if company policies and procedures are not applied consistently, there is a greater chance that if employees are dismissed for breaching a policy, they could be unfairly terminated. Moreover, inconsistent application of your policies and procedures will destroy your credibility of your compliance program. This last point cannot be overemphasized. If an employee is going to be terminated for fudging expense accounts in Brazil, you had best make sure the same conduct lands your top producer in the U.S. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, written compliance policies and procedures together with the code of conduct form the backbone of your compliance program. Number 2, the DOJ and SEC expect a well thought out and articulated set of compliance policies and procedures, and they must be adequately communicated throughout your organization. Number 3, institutional justice and institutional fairness for the application of policies and procedures demand consistent application of your policies and procedures literally across the globe. Join us tomorrow for Internal Control. I know you'll enjoy tomorrow's episode. I hope you will join me for the rest of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, where we take a deep dive into your overall compliance program. Thank you for listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. If you'd like more information on any of the topics of this month's series, 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, check out The Compliance Handbook 5th edition, available from LexisNexis. You can check it out at lexisnexis.com/Fox. I know you will find it useful and enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.